Everything in a college football season has come down to this. It's the national championship game. And if you go back and listen to my season preview episode back in August, this is not what I predicted. I can't do that flex on you. I can't be like, I told you it was going to be Ohio State and Notre Dame. I did say that I thought Ohio State would beat Texas for the national championship. And maybe what happens tonight will prove that. Maybe that will make everybody think, hey, that Cotton Bowl was the national championship game, depending on how it all shakes out. Because we've done that before with the Peach Bowl, when Georgia just beat the doors off of TCU, and they beat Ohio State at the very end of the game with a missed field goal. We went back and said, okay, this was the real national championship game, and maybe we'll do that depending on what shakes out tonight in Atlanta. I saw a comment from one of the discussions that we had that somebody had argued that Notre Dame has a puncher's chance and that there's not very many multiple paths to victory for the Fighting Irish, because I said that there are, and they disagreed. And I disagree with, I think that there are multiple paths to victory for each side. Now, does Ohio State have probably a little wider margin of error in that one? I think so. But the idea that Notre Dame is some undeserved challenger who should just be happy to be there, I don't think is the case. Are they beaten and banged up? Yeah, they are. And that might be their ultimate downfall. And I don't know that you can ever hold that against somebody that, like, I don't like doing that. Well, if so and so, if this had happened or if that had happened, things would be different. Right. And if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bike. It's just how it shakes out. Like, that is what happens. But I think there is more than one pathway to victory for Notre Dame. And I think their biggest key to having a chance to win the game is they need to do something that nobody else in the college football playoff has done to Ohio State. And that's take a lead on them. Not once, not for 1 second, because Ohio State trailed in the college football playoff. Not against Tennessee, not against Oregon, not against Texas. They have held the lead in every single game and have never trailed. And I think playing with a lead is something that Notre Dame is going to need to do. They are going to need to not play from behind at minimum. The longer that they can play tied or ahead, the likelihood that they win goes through the roof, because the way they're designed to play is to play with a lead. To one, and from both sides of the ball, truthfully, on the offensive side of the ball, they want to run the football. They want to be efficient, not necessarily, everybody wants to be explosive, but I think Notre Dame has recognized that they might not be the most explosive offense. That just isn't who they are and what they do. They want to be efficient. So that's running the football, high percentage completions with their quarterback, taking some time off the clock, somewhat sustained drives, because that travels. That is pretty difficult to beat. If you can score from anywhere on the field because you can put together a drive and continue to move the chains, that's really difficult to beat. And defensively, they want to play with a lead because they want to pin their ears back and rush the quarterback. Now, Notre Dame stops the run pretty well. Notre Dame does a good job defensively in all facets. But if they can make you one-dimensional, that plays right into their hands. So all of that to say that Notre Dame would be very beneficial for their chances to win to play with a lead, especially from the jump. If they can go down the field, score a touchdown, and go up 7-0, that will go a long way in helping them, because if they are the ones playing catch-up, I don't know that offensively they are able to catch up. I don't know that they are in a spot where they feel super confident that they can be down a touchdown or two where Ohio State took a 20-0 lead over Tennessee, a 34-0 lead over Oregon. Notre Dame doesn't just flat out. This is not knocking them. This is just a realistic look. They don't have the ability to come back from 20 down, 34 down, maybe even 14 down to win this game, in my opinion. So for Notre Dame, I think their path to victory includes playing with a lead. And that's as much defensively, because if you can force Ohio State to be in a situation where Will Howard has to march down the field 2 times in a row to beat you, I think Notre Dame should feel pretty good about their chances of forcing a turnover or getting a stop. But if Ohio State is playing with a lead, it puts Notre Dame on their heels a little bit, especially defensively, and that's not where they want to play. Now, for Ohio State, I think the big key for the Buckeyes is flat out make Notre Dame beat us. If Notre Dame comes out and plays flawless, perfect football and Ohio State loses, you can't do anything other than just tip your hat to them. Like, well, you know what? Great job. You guys deserve it. On the flip side, it's going to be a long offseason if the Buckeyes fumble the football, muff a punt, throw 2 interceptions, have, some interceptions go through their hands, whatever the case may be. Ohio State can't beat themselves. They cannot help Notre Dame win the game. And I recognize that sounds like an easy thing to do. It's all you got to do to accomplish a victory is like, hey, we got to do the little things. We got to play fundamentally sound, etc. Don't make stupid mistakes with the football. Everybody does it throughout the season at every level. At every level, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs who have won back-to-back Super Bowls, or the worst college football team, the worst high school football team, the best high school football and college football teams. Everybody at some point gets careless with the football, makes poor decisions, loses focus. It just can't happen on this stage, at this stage of the season. And so I would feel pretty confident that Ohio State isn't going to be careless with the football, that Will Howard isn't going to throw interceptions. Now, the flip side of that is you also have to still be willing to put the ball where it needs to be. You can't be so worried about making a mistake that you don't take any chance. You don't attempt to let the ball leave your hand, that you just like, I'm just going to run it. You can't be that either, because that can be just as difficult to overcome. That can be just as stymieing offensively. But I think that's kind of like Ohio State is the favorite. I think they know the favorite, and I think Notre Dame knows that Ohio State's the favorite. And when you are the favorite, especially in a game like this, the one thing you can't contribute to is building momentum and confidence to your opponent. When you are the decided favorite, you cannot play into their hand. So Ohio State has to play their game, play their brand of football, and cannot make the mental mistakes, the drive-killing penalties, a false start, a hold on second down, turning the football over, muffing a punt, bad pass interference on 3rd and long. If Ohio State comes in and plays a high IQ game, which there's that age-old adage, the teams take on the personality of their coaches, right? So Notre Dame plays with a somewhat quiet confidence. I don't think I would, and I don't think you would probably either, say that Notre Dame is cocky, arrogant, any of those things. Notre Dame, I believe, plays with a belief in themselves that they believe they're going to be successful. They have a quiet confidence about them because I think Marcus Freeman carries himself with a quiet confidence. I think Ohio State plays a high IQ brand and style of football, and their players have a high football IQ because Ryan Day has a high football IQ. And so having that high football IQ, when the mission is don't beat yourself, is a really good quality to have because you're keenly aware, you're cognizant of the mission is don't beat ourselves. How do we not beat ourselves? You don't need to have that necessarily completely explained in intricate detail for you because you play the game with a high football IQ. So I'm really intrigued by the matchup because I think, and while I've said, I think Ohio State is the favorite and has to just flat out avoid beating themselves, I still think it's an interesting game tonight. So my final score prediction is I'm going to take Ohio State somewhat similarly to the Cotton Bowl. I'm going to take Ohio State to win 28-13. That I believe that Notre Dame, who does a great job at forcing turnovers, probably gets 1 or 2 turnovers and gets themselves a short field. But overall, I don't know that I feel as super confident that their path to victory includes playing with a lead. I think that's harder said than done than don't beat yourself. And when the objectives are, we've got a little bit steeper mountain to climb than the other team, I think naturally and logically, it feels as if that's going to be more difficult to accomplish. If I were to ask you to close your eyes and say, which is easier? Don't beat yourself or score first, play with a lead, and keep one of the best offenses in the sport off the field as long as possible. It's really easy to figure out which one feels more difficult. And so the easier one is the answer that I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Ohio State 28-13. They put a late touchdown on the board to really seal the victory. But I think Ohio State probably scores first, plays with a lead. Notre Dame plays catch up a little bit, gets a turnover with a short field, converts that into a touchdown, and makes the Buckeyes sweat it out a little bit. Like the pucker factor is going to be still pretty high, but Ohio State gets a late touchdown, with like 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter that makes it 28-13. And that's my final score prediction. Want to know your final score predictions? Hit me up in the comments down below. Who you got winning? What's the final score? Would love to read your thoughts and your prognostications of the national championship game. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.